Stanley Tweedle.
Stanley Tweedle? Time Prophet, my name is not Stanley Tweedle. My name is,
It matters not. By seeing into the future past, I know that 5,000 years after your death, Stanley Tweedle will visit the Brunnis memory catacombs. He will touch your memory.
But my question was about the mineral deposits on Aryllium 4.
Forget about the mineral deposits. This is important. Stanley, you are the only one who can save Kai and Zev. You must go to Section 83, Row 249, Block 35. There you will find a stone cover. Lift it.
But...
Go now!
You know, there's actually a real problem with my southern accent when I do it.
What's that?
I don't talk slow enough.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm going to leave this in because I don't know if anybody else is from the South and you have the opportunity to interact with some good old boys.
True Southerners.
I was born here and raised here and it is so fucking hot. I don't do anything fast. Good old boys. But it is like watching paint dry.
Like listening to paint dry.
We had a good old boy vet. You couldn't get a diagnosis in less than 45 minutes. One time he called about blood work for the cat and he was like, well, so we got the blood back. And what we're not going to talk about today is diabetes. And what we're not going to talk about today is the liver. And what we're not going to talk about today is kidneys. It's like, for the love of God, what is it? In case you're wondering it, I had a cat with hyperthyroidism, but I don't know. I was thinking about that today. And then when we were just doing it before we turned the recording on, because I hit the button and I hit the right button the first time.
Woo!
And I said, I'm real good that right there. But I didn't say it slow enough.
Yeah, it was pretty quick.
Yeah. Although there is some. I mean, if you go, there's certain Southern accents that have a real fast cadence to them.
Yes.
Yeah. Those are the ones you can't understand because they're talking too fast. All of this is to delay what we're actually going to talk about today. And what would that be, Matthew?
How much I love you.
Hi, I'm Rachel.
And I'm Matt.
Welcome to the Dead Do Not podcast.
A Lexx Rewatch.
Just a bumbling security guard in the great wide galaxy. Till one day he was dealt a different card in the form of a key. This key controlled the most powerful weapon ever made. Now he had it by sheer accident, or maybe it was fate. What a cast of characters all on the spacecraft traveling. A woman named Zev who escaped from her programming. A disembodied robot head that got brainwashed instead. And Kai, the always glum undead assassin. In this space adventure you never know what comes next. So come join the crew for tales of sci-fi, laughter, and sex on the Dead Do Not podcast. Watching Lexx.
Today we're talking about Lexx Season 1, Episode 2.
But
Part
before we do
2.
that, should we have a sound effect for the name of the podcast at the beginning? For Coming 81 Kilo, we had the megaphone noise.
Yeah.
For the Dune Deep Cut, we had the reverb.
What other options are there?
I don't know, there's robot. There's...
Okay, so in the name of democracy, we're going to give you guys a couple of options. Matt, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, here we go.
The Dead Do Not Podcast.
The Dead Do Not Podcast.
I don't like that one.
No.
The Dead Do Not Podcast.
No.
The Dead Do Not Podcast.
I can't with that one. I Okay, so we had two real options there, I think. The regular with the slight reverb, like the reverb spacey one, and then the Satan from the pit.
There's lots of other options. We just have to set them up.
That's okay.
There on the LCD are the names for the effects too.
Well, let's do this one too.
The Dead Do Not Podcast.
So anyway,
It's a little
which
less
one?
reverby.
I didn't give those any kind of a number, so
Okay, so let's do it again.
Okay,
Here's
okay.
blue.
The Dead Do Not Podcast. And orange. The Dead Do Not Podcast.
don't do that. Don't do that.
The Dead Do Not Podcast.
That was orange.
Yellow,
Nope.
purple,
Nope.
Dark purple.
That one. That's the one I like.
The Dead Do Not Podcast.
A Lexx rewatch. Okay, we fucked around enough. You ready to talk about Lexx? Speaking of
We're just
fucking
keeping
around.
up with the theme of the show.
Speaking of fucking around, that's the entire rest of this episode. Matt was like, what happens? And I'm like, everything happens in the second half. It's not even
Yeah.
the second half. It's the second hour and 15 minutes because we only talked about 15 minutes of it last time.
Okay, so we're on the planet.
Yeah, no, we've met Tim Curry, which is honestly the most important part of this entire episode. He appeared, he pontificated, and then he said, the Poet Man, that his name is the Poet Man, and he's the last guy on Brunnis.
Brunnis.
The Brunnen G is what he says. He even does the Brunnen.
But the planet is Brunnis.
It's Brunnis, but
Yeah.
he's like, anyway, it doesn't matter.
He's the last mind.
Yeah. And he goes, only I, Poet Man, have chosen to stay, although it wasn't actually a choice. And then he disappears and the door opens and either Stanley or Zev goes, who's he? And Kai goes, Poet Man. Like, didn't you listen to the speech?
A man who is a poet.
Weren't we all there? And then they go, who's Poet Man? And Kai goes, a poet, perhaps.
Kai doesn't know.
He is such a dad. Such a dad who is like my mom. Anytime I asked who invented something, she'd just say the name back to me. Like, who invented the toothbrush? Mr. Tooth Our Brush. Who invented the car? Mr. Automobile. You're looking at me like that didn't happen. That definitely happened. You've met my mother.
Yep.
And then they go in and we get another visitation from Poet Man. He pops back up because,
anytime the automated recording comes up, he intervenes.
I'm pretty sure they just locked Tim Curry in a room and recorded
A
him
green screen?
for
Yeah.
like 18 hours. And then they just cut it up and put it in this episode.
Yeah.
Because he says they had a farewell party and he did a couple of kaboo flowers. And you know how it goes. You wake up 4 days later and the whole planet is empty. Kind of feels like when I had that 45-ounce margarita.
Yeah.
Yeah. I imagine that's exactly what it is.
Except it's 145-ounce margarita is a kaboom flower.
Yeah, and he did a bunch of kaboo flowers.
Yeah.
And then he said, what he says more specifically, and this is important because it's really pretty, is, and then like the singing of a sad, silent song, you wake from slumber and everyone's gone. Meanwhile, Jigarada has broken free with her freaky ass tongue that just appeared today. Congratulations. They were like, how can we get Jigarada out of this? Maybe Jigarada's tongue is an actual whole separate appendage that has its own mouth. And they were like, okay. And then she used that to get out. So there you go. And she goes to the bridge.
It passes the vibe check.
It's fine. She doesn't have a rubber face.
Hey.
She's not smarter than a human.
She's not?
Not smarter than a human. One of the
Oh.
rules was there will be no super
yes.
intelligent aliens unless
Yes.
they start writing the scripts. So she goes to the cockpit and she finds 790 there and she's like, metalhead. And he goes, leather ass. King of the comeback. That's who 790 is.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And Jigarada goes, where is the waste of skin?
Waste of skin or waste of flesh?
Waste of skin, because she
Okay.
calls him Skin Man for the whole rest of the episode, because it's Stanley Tweedle she's looking for. But meanwhile, Jiggerata hears the siren song of the divine predecessors. You remember the ones that we destroyed last episode? Those divine
The ones that
predecessors?
all got squished,
The ones that all got squished, and then
eaten by cluster lizards,
and then they killed
or
the shadow
squished by Kai.
and then they killed the shadow in that room, and then all the predecessors were dead, and they stopped squishing the predecessors because there was no soul left in any of the predecessors.
Well, the predecessor shells have been restocked.
Yes. Yeah, you know what? We debated this at length in the last episode, so we're just going to let it lie. We're going to let it lie.
Yeah, we'll just skip to the
It's fine.
end.
You know what? It doesn't fucking matter because nobody cares. So they're moaning in the distance. They're
It's
like,
a 30-year-old TV show, Rachel. Nobody cares about 30-year-old TV shows.
as my co-hosts on Feast, Sheath, and Chatter are constantly reminding me, they're like, wow, I am so glad that there is a couple of other people that like these things too.
There are dozens of
There are
us.
dozens of us. They're like, you know what was funny? Hannah had heard of Lexx. She was like,
Okay.
I haven't watched it, but I have heard of it. Neither one of them had heard of Forever Night. So
Okay, so
Somehow
we're
this is
moving
less
to
niche.
more. This is more mainstream.
somehow, because there's nudity. Anyway,
I looked it up. There's one nudity scene.
dang it. And I did this. You know what? That's it. The Dead Do Not podcast is canceled.
Yeah, I found a lengthy forum post where the guy was like, "Why? Why do you have like the second episode? You have like a full frontal nudity scene,
And then we just don't
for
do
the
that again."
entire rest of the series, nothing."
That's because Canadian television in the 90s was the fucking wild, wild west.
Yeah.
They did what they wanted and they didn't want to be consistent and they didn't care.
Yep.
Anyway,
Anyway,
Jiggerata's in the cockpit, and she hears Jiggerata.
she's riding the cockpit
Jiggerata.
from
And it
like the other
I
chamber
know
where
where this. Yeah, it's we're the divine predecessor. I
Yeah.
thought you were going on with your sex joke. I'm sorry, I
No.
shushed you. And so she goes to investigate, and it's the divine predecessors, and they're like, "Oh, hey, sup, Jiggerata? You look like a woman who would help a couple of brains to get what they want, so that you can get what you want." And so they tell her to go find Stanley Tweedle, which she wanted to do anyway. So she's like, "Fuck you, I was going to do that anyway," and starts eating the brains. And God bless this actress. Do you know how much shit she had to eat in this episode? I don't even
she
know.
just put so much stuff in her mouth.
I don't even know what she's actually eating. Probably unflavored gelatin.
Yeah.
And she had to eat it. She eats the thing at the beginning, the moth, and then she eats a bunch of the brain pieces, which it's like falling out of her mouth, and it's real chunky and gross looking. And as someone who has a lot of food texture things, I would vomit if you forced me to eat one of these brains, and she just does it. She also eats part of a moth later. Anyway. And they're like, "Can you go get Stanley and bring him back to the Lexx so we can all leave?" And she's like, "Yeah, of course I was going to do that already. I'm going to eat your brains." And then we go to the, I'm literally going to eat your brains because you actually are only brains. And then they go back to the ancient building, the archives,
Yeah.
the Hall of Memory.
Something like that.
It doesn't matter. And Stan and Zev and Kai are in this corridor with these strange markings over the door.
And so they're debating markings.
They're
What is
like-
it? What does it mean?
And they're like, "Oh man, I hate it when they use pictures instead of words." You know, like when you're trying to figure out how to use something and it's just pictographs, and you're like, I get that this is great for multiple languages, but I don't know what the fuck is going on. And one of them steps on a loose tile and this holographic recording pops up. And each room, it turns out, has like a guide. But of course, the poet man has fucked with all of them. And he ends up cracking jokes about what's in each room.
But in a non-informative way.
Yeah. And then Kai is, no, sorry. I had it right the first time.
The original troll.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you think he cut his hair when he woke up and was like, "I don't have to keep this beehive anymore"?
You
I
mean
wish-
Kai?
No, the poet man. I
Oh,
kind of wish.
Oh, right. Because he doesn't have the typical
no, he just
Brunnis.
has his like, "I'm Tim Curry. I showed up on set today. You're welcome."
It's like Sean Connery in Highlander with the Spanish accent.
Yeah.
He just didn't do it.
They probably put a wig on him and he just took it off on his way to set. I
Yeah.
don't know. I want him to have the hair. I just want to see Tim Curry in the hair.
Yeah, I think it would have added to the vibe.
Yeah. Yeah. And Zev is like, okay, well, we're going to figure this room out because I'm pretty sure there's something here that can help you, Kai.
Right, because Zev's mission here is to reanimate, restore Kai to life.
Yeah.
And so...
Or at least find a way to keep him awake all the time.
Right.
Because otherwise she's stuck with just Stanley Tweedle.
Which is not an option
Not
for
an
her.
ideal situation.
So this door says life.
Well, Kai goes, I'm not looking for help. She's like, this could help you. And he's like, I don't want to help. And so first they have history, which is dust. Who wants to be remembered by their dust? And he like throws dust in the air. And then Kai is like, oh, the bird is the Brunnis symbol for life. And then the poet man shows up, pops up. And he's like, life is the sweetest mystery. More like sweetest misery.
But
And
Zev's like, she's sold.
She's
She's
sold.
ready to go.
She gets surrounded by an energy field and whisked through the door. And Kai's like, oh, wait, that's not the symbol for life. Dang it. I knew I should have paid attention in school. It's a symbol for burst of life. And Stanley's like, what does that mean? He's like, man, fuck if I know. And then he ends up going through the door after her. And then Kai is there alone. And the poet man continues.
You mean Tweedle? Stanley Tweedle's
Yes,
there alone?
Stanley's there alone.
Oh, you said Kai was there alone.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, no, Stanley's there alone. And then the poet man is continuing to talk. Like
How about the
he
next door?
just gets a lot of jibber jabber. And it's about how Brunnis is his planet now. I own this. Nobody else is here. It's
So this is my understanding is this is all like pre-recorded messages. This
Yeah.
isn't interactive,
no.
except in the sense of I do this thing, I trigger this sensor, and the system responds with this pre-recorded video.
Mm-hmm.
So he's not like aware that anybody's actually there.
No, he's just, he's filling his time because
Yeah.
he can't leave. I guess they took all the spaceships with them too. Or maybe he didn't know where they were going. I don't know.
He doesn't know how to fly a spaceship.
And
He's a poet.
He's a
man.
poet. I'm a poet, not a pilot.
Damn it, Jim.
Damn it, Jim. He's like, how could they have forgotten me? Don't they appreciate me? And Stanley's like, okay, well, I think I'm going to go through the love door. So he goes through the love door because Stanley needs to find a private place to erupt by himself.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, back on the Lexx, Jiggerata has decided to eat the brains, which she calls thinking meat, instead of going with their bargain. And she goes, too salty. And they're like, yeah, we're all salty. And then they hit her with a brainwave, and they end up showing her an image of this planet.
Oh, this is
called
this
Dexter
is so
9
trippy.
of the milk-fed boys. And it's a man drinking a glass of milk, and it runs down his chin, over his chiseled pecs, and then down through his abs. And then it like pans over, and there's two like equally chiseled men carrying a tray that they set
like a
down.
stretcher.
They set down in front of Jiggerata, and they lift the lid off, and it's another guy curled in the fetal position with like a gag over his mouth. And she pulls out a knife and fork, and she's like, oh yeah. And then she comes back to herself, and she's like, no, Jiggerata wants to go there. Honey, we all want to go there. She's like, no, I want to go back. And they're like, yeah, no, we'll tell you how to get there if you
It's
bring
the
us
only
Stanley.
vision that they can do.
Yeah, Jiggerata actually Jiggerata goes, Jiggerata wants.
That's the only illusion that they can produce.
And the most important part about this is they're all wearing tighty whities and socks with sandals. Like that's the outfit of the men in the. Okay, it's fine. Yeah, yes, they have one. They have one trump card that they can use for anything.
It'd be so funny if they had to use this on everyone, and the writers had to figure out a plausible way for each one to react to this vision in a positive way.
Yeah. And she's like, all right, well, I guess. And so they end up giving her the memories of Brunnis so that she can go find Stan. They're like, we've been to this planet before. We have memories
and
of being
they've
here.
absorbed memories of other Brunnis.
Yeah.
So, yeah, they teach her the ways of the memory
Yeah.
archive thing.
So then she hops on a moth and flies it down to the planet, eating some of it in the meantime.
Which is kind of mean.
I mean, she's Jiggerata, so. And then Stanley takes the love door, as previously mentioned, because the poet man lured him with the idea of a warm embrace. And that thing called love. After Stanley calls himself a coward for not trying to save Zev. He's like, man, Kai ran right in there after Zev. So, you know, too many cooks spoil the broth. I think I'm going to go check out the love door.
I don't want to get in anybody's way.
Yeah.
Kai can take care of it.
Right. So he's like, okay, say I want love. And Stanley's like, what? And the poet man goes, say I want love. And finally Stanley goes, I want love. And the poet man goes, oh yeah, baby, you gonna get it.
So if Kai had trouble reading stuff in this building, why does Tim Curry speak the same language?
Well, because one of the rules is everyone on every planet speaks the same language. It's kind of like if we came back to the planet Earth 50,000 years later and we'd forgotten what the handicap symbol was.
Yeah.
I mean, that's basically that's basically what that was.
I was just thinking of the brainworm thing from Farscape.
Oh yeah, the
universal translator.
Yeah.
The babblefish.
It's not really a babblefish.
Well, I
It's
know,
like
but
it's fine.
I don't remember what it's called, but that's what it does.
Translator microbes, I think. And they also have dentics, little worms that live in your teeth, that brush your teeth.
Yeah.
And they poop out minty freshness. I mean, I'd love a dentic. Anyway,
Yeah.
so then Zev wakes up and she wakes up. And is presented with memories of her parents telling her that she just doesn't meet the standard, and that's why they're sending her to the hollow care home.
This is a bit traumatic. It
This
gets
was
kind of
like-
dark.
What? This whole scene with Zev and Kai is so fucking weird. And it starts with like, hey, let's relive Zev's childhood trauma, shall we? Like, why is Zev who she is? Oh, because her parents were like, well, yeah, we don't quite like you very much. So we're going to send you to the hollow care home. And then we cut to Stanley. And Stanley is walking through what looks like a cheap strip club with like lava lamps. And he ends up getting scanned and it's like male, female, male, female, female, male, female. And then it ends up getting stuck on female. And then what I like is the little lights have the same Brunnis hairstyle.
Yes.
Yeah. And then the poet man pops up and he's like, yes, a female. I will live again. the
Said-
fertile female
said
I've been
only
waiting
in the
for.
intensity that Tim Curry can deliver.
And Stanley goes, I'm Stanley Tweedle. I'm whole man. And then he ends up getting
Poor guy.
like captured and dragged off. And then we cut back to Zev. And Zev is seeing herself in the hollow care home. And this lady is looking at her through bars. And she goes, repeat after me. Are you comfortable, darling? And little Zev goes, are you comfortable, darling? And they're like, wow, that was really close to standard. You're pretty close to being ready for the wife bank.
Yeah.
Gross.
Yeah, they don't really pull any punches there.
What I really hate is that this feels so close to what it's like to live in the South as a woman. We're all just in the wife bank, waiting to be chosen.
Women are vessels for life. What?
This is my clay fucking pot or whatever. God, get out of here. So then the Brunnis lady pops up. The real hologram, not the Tim Curry hologram. And she's like, these memories are your history, but you have chosen your own future. Here your suffering ends and your burst of life begins. And then we hear Zev, and she looks over and she sees Kai, and Kai is in color. His outfit is in color again, so that's how we know he's alive.
Mm-hmm.
Because he's gotten his carbon back.
He's recarbonized.
He's recarbonized. And then they run to each other and he's like, I want you, Zev. And she's like, I want you, Kai. And then they're like, I'm alive. So alive.
What a trip.
They a musical number.
They went for a musical scene.
This is why this shit is
Great.
the wild, wild west. Okay.
Yeah.
They were like, can you guys sing and dance? And they were like, middlingly.
We can try.
We can do our best. And they're like, that's all we ask. And you know what? They do their best. And then the vision fades and we end up cutting to Stanley. And he's restrained on what I can only describe as a bondage table.
Oh, to me, it looked a lot like the like
Bondage table?
birthing stirrups.
Yeah, which are not a thing that is not on a bondage table. And
That's
there's even animal print all over it.
Oh yeah, because it's all love themed.
And the poet man pops up and he goes, the truly creative can always create in unorthodox ways. You can't pour this creativity down the drain. I can't jack off in the shower.
So basically, he's prepared clone material, like clone embryos of himself.
No, it's his jizz, honey. It's semen in a syringe.
Oh, well, I mean, that's the crude way to talk about it.
Okay, I'm sorry. It's his
He's
genetic
prepared
material.
a way to propagate his
I mean,
lineage.
if you want to be crude about it, I do want to be crude about it. In my notes, I actually said a mechanical arm removes a syringe from a cold storage, and it's definitely filled with jizz. That's what it says on my notes. And it starts making its way.
I was rationalizing about it a little bit.
Okay.
Because how do you know if she's even ovulating?
Yeah.
So I thought
it's
it would
fair.
be more
It's
a
just
more reliable solution to his problem to have it be like cloned embryos of him.
yeah, except he wouldn't have access to eggs. Or he may not even need them.
You can make eggs from stem cells.
It's fine. Doesn't matter. We've already talked about it too long. We go back, and Kai and Zev are no longer having a musical number. Broadway is over,
She has had her burst of life.
and now they are restrained to tables with a large saw blade hovering above them.
Oh no!
Golly gee, how is this going to end? And the poet man takes a moment to jest at their situational death and makes a crack about the burst of life that's about to happen. And then he disappears and the Brunnis woman reappears and she's like, citizen, you have chosen death and with it the gift of eternal life. Because they're going to get
Euthanasia.
downloaded. They're going to get
Yeah.
downloaded and then people can go and experience their lives. But I mean, they're still going to be dead. Then we go back to Stanley because things are happening really fast now. And this is when he says, the seed will always grow, which is why I figured it was probably
Yeah.
only male genetic material, if you want to call it that. Then we go back to the saw.
Male
then-
genetic material substrate.
You know what? There's a lot of back and forth in this episode because right now we're going Stanley, Zev, and Kai. Stanley, Zev, and Kai.
And pretty soon we're going to throw
And then,
Jiggerata
then
in.
it'll be Jiggerata, and it'll be Jiggerata and Stan, Zev, and Kai, Jiggerata. This is a lot of like flop, 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 back and forth. Probably to keep it moving, which it kind of does. I like this episode. It's fine. It's good. It's funny. Less happened in this episode than in the first episode.
Yeah, this is purely an info dump episode.
Yeah, it's a way of getting us into the world. It's a little bit of world building. And giving us some background on Zev,
And
Zai.
closure on Kai.
Is Zai, Zev, and Kai's couple name? Or should it be Kev?
It's absolutely Kev.
Okay.
Then you don't
Yeah.
have to change the spelling when the actress changes.
That's true. Yeah. Because otherwise, it's fine. Okay. So the saw keeps like ramping up, and every time it does, like we see the saw start turning, and then we see the chain go up, and we see all the gears start moving. It's like a 45-second long like ramp up thing that it shows every single time. And then it will pause so that the poet man can rant a little bit. And then we see the like rev up again, which is supposed to be suspense. So it's fine. And then we go back to Stanley. And the poet man is still talking. Stanley's just trying to get out of this because this needle is getting ever closer and it's
To
going
his junk.
And there's a very real chance it could impregnate him. I don't know. He just doesn't want it to. You know what?
This is beyond science.
I wouldn't want like 10,000-year-old jizz injected into me either.
Just into your abdominal cavity.
It'd be like from what's the movie with Arnold Schwarzenegger where he gets pregnant? Is it 9 months? And they literally are just like, well, there's space here, and so they inject the embryo into his abdomen.
I remember them injecting him with something that stimulates the growth of a uterus.
I respect that period of Arnold Schwarzenegger so much.
Those were bold moves.
I mean, he was like, I'm about to be typecast as an action hero. Fuck it, I'm going to get pregnant.
And then twins with Danny DeVito.
Yeah.
And Kindergarten Cop.
And he made it through it. And then on the other side, he got to still be a cool dude. Not like Vin Diesel, who went. Was he the one who did the Tooth Fairy?
Yes.
Anyway, I'm just going to leave that there.
Oh, no, that was The Rock.
Was that The Rock?
I'm pretty sure the Tooth Fairy was The Rock.
Okay. Vin Diesel just got too busy with Fast and the Furious and Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah, his D&D games.
Yeah. Anyway, the Poet Man is like, woman, softness, breasts, touch. I imagine you. I think of you. I possess you. I think you'll agree this calls for a poem. Floating along the whispering surf and then squished. Jiggerata silences the Poet Man.
Thank you, Jiggerata.
With a rock. And then Jiggerata comes over and is like, haha, Stanley, I have saved you. And Stan is like, oh, shit.
For how long?
And Jiggerata goes, we're on the same team now, okay? Cross Jiggerata's stomachs.
Stomachs.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Tell Stan that and then she tells Stan that Kev, let's just go with it, that Kev are actually already back on the bug. He's like, well, what about Kai? What about Zev? I can't just leave them. And she's like, oh, no, they already went back home. It's fine. And
he's don't you worry about it.
And he's like, thank you, Jiggerata, paragon of truth and honesty. I really appreciate you and the fact that you will absolutely never lie to me.
Jiggerata will always act in Jiggerata's self-interest.
And here's the part that got a little long.
Yeah, it dragged a little bit.
It did get a little. I mean, I thought it was fine. It got a little long because we go back to the life room and it ends up cutting Kai in half. Like this is it just.
It's actually 2 saw blades, so it leaves the little slice in between.
A thin sheet. Actually,
I remember this episode, but I thought Kai had gotten sliced into a lot more slices, and they had to like smush him back together.
That's because your brain took Hannibal Lecter and Lexx and just went swoosh.
Yeah. There's also a scene in Foundation where the android lady is sliced into a bunch of slices.
Did she get better?
It's a flashback.
Oh, okay. I didn't watch any of that. I don't know why I was suddenly worried. No, not the android lady whose name I don't know. Anyway, it cuts Kai in half. And really the most important part of this scene, 2 things. I love the CD. It takes his memories and it burns them to a CD. And I love sci-fi that cannot project a different version of static storage into the future. They're like, what will we be using?
Right.
In another universe, thousands of years from now. The compact disc, right? Because it's a perfect way of storing media. Yeah, that's exactly it. And I
also really like the practical effects of the half chunk of Kai's body.
That was part 2.
Okay.
The Kai chunks that fall and like little wiggle a little bit.
Because they're just like painted gelatin or whatever.
My only real thing here is when they cut him in half and it leaves the slice, which they end up like sticking the CD to and then lifting so they can hang it in the hall of memories up above them. Why was his cross section the same color as everyone else's cross section?
Oh, because it's stained. It's treated.
Decarbonized. His cells should react differently even to stain.
Well, and his skin is still the same color.
Oh, he's pale.
So?
He got shot.
We're all the same color on the inside, Rachel.
Not Kai. He did. He doesn't even have blood. He has proto blood, and the proto blood is colorless.
Psh.
Okay, it's fine. This was like, honestly, that would have been too high of an expectation. It's fine. They made like a bunch. Who had to make all these? There are a lot of these.
How did they make a body size? Oh, yeah, the slices.
And they're not, I mean, they're just like crotch to head because it goes between the legs.
So, Kai must tuck. Because that's not on the slice.
Maybe that's what you lose when you get decarbonized. I know.
Oh, no.
So he gets his whole life formatted onto this CD. Remember the sound it made when you were burning a CD? Yep. Anyway. And they catalog it up above somewhere by attaching his sliver to like, it doesn't matter. And then the parts of Kai fall off. And this is a really cool
3M
moment.
strip to stick the CD to the slice.
And then Zev is like, no, Kai. I mean, because it kind of looked like Kai did, right? He cut in half and he fell on either side. And then like the pieces of him are on both sides of the table for all the cutaways for the rest of this whole scene.
Yeah.
And then Jiggerod, of course, has rescued Stanley from his non-consensual insemination. And she takes him out of the love room and she's like, okay, cool. Wait in this corridor. I just have to go down here and do something. And he's like, okay. And he just lets her go. What could Jiggerod possibly be up to that would be good? And then we go back to the room with Zev, and it's Zev's turn to be cut in half and to share the burst of life because the lady pops up and she's like, you have chosen to share the burst of life with another. This is the greatest gift. And then Stanley waits for a minute and then goes in to check on Jiggerada. And she's like touching things across this really narrow bridge, which I'm always like, why was the bridge there?
Right?
What was the chasm for? It's fine. It doesn't matter. And apparently there's just one big fucking button that turns off the stabilizers that are keeping the sun from exploding. They were like, should we make an off switch? I mean, is there a situation?
Should it be labeled at all, or should it just look like another rock in the wall?
Is there a situation where they would need to let the sun explode? And so you would therefore need to be able to turn it off with a single button.
I mean, she's doing more than just pushing one button.
No, because when they turn it off and on and off and on and off and on.
In my head,
Okay.
she does a bunch of things to set it up so that now this turns the whole sun stabilizer thing on and off.
Yeah.
But this control panel can do a lot more than that. She's just opened the right menus and selected the right things.
Well, she pulls out this glowing block, and the computer, like the Hall of Memory computer, is like, thank you for choosing the destabilization wizard. And she turns off the planet stabilizers. Like, she turns off the things on the planet, the big light towers that are shooting power up to the stabilizers in the sky that are keeping the sun from exploding. Because that's an option, and she did it. And this is part of her agreement with the divine predecessors. Is not only is she going to get Stanley, but she's going to blow Brunnis the fuck up. So she starts the destabilization process, and Stanley just walks over and pushes the button back in, and it's like, okay, stabilizers reinitializing.
Well, when the destabilization process starts, the saw getting ready to cut Zev stops because power's rerouted.
Right, that's what my next line is. Every time they do the start and stop, the burst of light room, we go to the burst of life room, and the saw both stops and starts. And we watch the saw revving up.
Yeah, we're just
saw slowing down.
Building the tension by hopping back and forth.
And Jiggerada, so Stanley is actually so desperate that Jiggerada nearly manages to seduce him, and she's wearing a people suit. It's a real.
He has a low bar.
It's a real mark of desperation moment. She is not taking this suit off. She got wet. I don't know if she took it off and dried it out. Anyway, She must smell like nasty wet leather.
Oh, all the time.
Yeah. And Jiggerata goes, Jiggerata has big appetites and not just for food. And she like grabs Stan's hands and puts them on her boobs and like rubs them around. And Stan's like, you make a compelling argument.
Comrade.
But I mean, to his credit, he's like, but what about Kai and Zev? Like, I can't do this to them. And so she's like, fuck them. And so she turns around and she takes the glowing block out again and stops the stabilizers again. So the saw stops, saw starts. And then Stanley restarts the stabilizers again. So the saw starts, stops, and then the you get it. And then Jiggerata actually knocks out Stan and stops the stabilizers again for the third time, but not the last time. And again, the saw stops and starts. Anyway, this goes back and forth a lot.
But
And
then she makes an executive decision
to
that
fuck Stanley,
She just
but
needs.
not like that.
No, she just needs Stan's hand.
Yeah, she's like, there's really only one part of you that I need. So she bites off his hand with her freaky tongue. Yeah, sure, it's fine. Why didn't she use that to escape from prison earlier?
Because she had not been given it yet.
Oh, okay. So she bites off Stanley's hand and then she returns to the Lexx with it and she rams it down on the stick and like mounts it on a stick and sticks it in the floor in the cockpit. And it's like gross and like flaky look. It's really nasty. And then poor Stanley is now walking around this building with his hand all wrapped up. And he's like staggering around because he's bleeding. And he ends up in the room completely full of paper thin cross sections of people.
Not creepy at all.
I mean, that's a moment, right? You're like, okay, I'm in this place with all these holograms and there's glowing blocks. And apparently the Hall of Memory is where they kept the control device to turn off the... But it's fine. And then you walk in and, oh, it's a bunch of...
Every building had one of these control panels. And
Oh, yeah.
Jiggerata just
Even like McDonald's,
configured this one to do it.
the cash register at McDonald's could turn off the stabilizers. So to kind of shorthand Zev's entire section here, I'm just going to go, and then I'm not going to talk about it anymore because that's basically what she's doing.
Because she gets out.
I mean, she gets out. We all kind of knew she was going to get out. So poor Stanley is walking around with his hand cut off. And Jiggerata has fucked off back to the bug and put it on a stick, which is gross. And we've already covered that. And then she's like, okay, bug, take me to the milk-fed boys. She uses coordinates, but what she means is take me to the fuckboy planet. I want to go to the fuckboy planet. And they're like, yeah, no, the Lexx isn't going to respond to you.
Yeah,
And-
because you need the whole Stanley Tweedle.
Right. So she goes back to
I
the
wonder if
brains.
it would still work if he was dead. I'm guessing no.
I don't know, because the key must transfer at the last minute.
I think the key has to be given before you die.
Yeah.
That way you can't just kill the person who has the key and take it
Well,
from
the hand
them.
has the key, but he doesn't have his voice, which is what the brains say. Because Jiggerata fucks off down
that's
to
a
the
good
brain
point.
room and
Yeah.
she's like, Thinking Meat lied to me. Thinking Meat told me I could have fuckboys and I can't have fuckboys. And they're like, Jiggerata, please.
That's
We
you're twisting our words.
we asked you to bring back all of Stanley Tweedle, not just his hand.
The whole deal.
Like all of it. And she's like, oh yeah, that was in the fine print, wasn't it? And he's like, yeah, we need your voice. We need his voice. That's the only thing Lexx will respond to. And she's like, fucking fine. So she leaves. She gets in a moth and flies off.
The original 2-factor authentication.
I mean,
I guess 3-factor authentication. I guess there's not a password that you have to remember. There's a thing that you have,
No, I
which
know,
is the
no.
key energy.
It's
There's a
fine.
thing that you are, which is like your voice.
Stanley Tweedle. Yeah.
Stanley Tweedle, your identity. But there's not like a passphrase. So it's only 2-factor authentication.
Yeah. Meanwhile, Stanley stumbles through a door into an entire room full of paper thin cross sections of people with discs glued to their head.
And he still functions. So, I mean, kudos.
Yeah, because I would. Can you imagine walking into that room? Well, you know what? He lives in a world where the protein bank exists.
Yeah,
So this
and
is
it's a
probably
thing
like.
that comes up on a daily basis.
So it's probably like, oh, this is nice. They get their memories kept, not just their organs don't get to live on in robots, and the rest of their body doesn't go to the protein bank. That's kind of sweet, actually. But me, I would be like, what? And yeah, maybe he thinks they're decorative.
I don't know that Stanley Tweedle has optimistic delusions about reality.
That's true. He's probably extremely realistic, which is why he's just like, well, fuck, here's an entire room full of thin cross sections of
He
people.
just observed reality,
Here we are.
stores it, and moves on.
Well, he does stagger because, of course, he's lost a lot of blood. Jiggerata bit off his hand with her weird tongue thing, and he stumbles into one and he touches the disc. And apparently that's all that's required to play it. And it reminds me, do you remember Roswell? Like
Yeah, where they would play the CDs.
They can play CDs with that.
Yeah.
And so Isabel would hold the CD up to her ear.
I remember that.
And, yeah. Thank you for sharing.
Core
this
memory
moment with me. But it's a memory of someone visiting the Time Prophet. And the Time Prophet is like, hi, Stanley. I see you watching me.
And the person's like, my name's not Stanley.
He's like, I just came to find out about mineral deposits. And she's like, fuck your mineral deposits. That's not important right now. Stan, look at me. Look at me. Zev's life is in danger. And you need to go find Kai's cross section and then the opening to the burst of life room. And you gotta fucking save her. And here it is. And she gives him the whole address. And he's like, oh, okay, great. And so he leaves and he starts to repeat it and he forgets the last number. So he touches the disc one more time and she's like, 5. And he's like, thank you. Yes, 5. Okay, got it.
Which I think establishes that the true hero of this story is the Time Prophet.
I mean, clearly. She only has the strength for one question, but she seems to make this work into a thing. Although the entire
I wonder how many
universe-
more times the Time Prophet pops up in the series.
I guess we'll find out. But like the entire universe rearranged itself so that Stanley Tweedle could have that moment to save Zev.
Wait, and not like rearranged itself.
I mean,
just like
a whole series of coincidences had to happen for Stanley to be in that room at that moment to touch that disc.
But the Time Prophet knew that Stanley would be in that room at that time.
I think the key thing here is how granular the Time Prophet's vision is, which means she could absolutely see lottery numbers.
Well, of course.
Maybe that's why she only has the strength for one question.
Right, because there's a recursive process to it where your observation and action changes the outcome, but then you have to cycle through that change, observe the outcome, difference, try again, see what the new outcome is, and then you just keep cycling on that until you get a stable like interference and result that you can like state objectively.
Did you just software engineer the universe?
No, that's just time travel.
Oh, okay, it's fine. Anyway, so Stanley goes off to look for the right section. I mean, I heard you. I did.
Mm-hmm.
Stanley goes off to the right section and he opens the cover.
I'll just twist my mustache.
Yeah, I shall spin my mustache. He opens the right section. He looks down and there's Zev doing the part because actually right now the blade isn't moving because the stabilizers are destabilizing. So they're using all of the power. And then right there beside her is like Kai's bits that are
wobbly bits
that are on either side of the table. Meanwhile, Jiggerata is flying back and she eats part of the moth and tells it to quit whining. And
right, because she rips a chunk off and it kind of screams.
Right. And she kills a bunch more predecessors, so they must redispense a couple more. Yeah.
Restocking.
And so poor Stan is trying to get down to Zev. He's like, I don't know how to get to you. So he tries to rappel down the rope and he gets stuck and he's like, this isn't working. And then the destabilization process ends And it's like, okay, I can put the power back where it goes. So, of course, the saw restarts for like the 17th fucking time. But don't worry, y'all. Were you worried? You
Right,
shouldn't
this feels
be.
a little overdone at this point.
No, you shouldn't be because the blue mystery star. Remember the mystery star that Kai very pointedly looked up in the sky?
I don't remember that being there.
It's like I've learned all of I've learned all the Brunnis' sky. And I've never seen that blue star before in my entire life. That's definitely not going to be important later.
Kai was valedictorian, I bet.
Of course he was. That's why he's the one that's going to save the universe. But the blue light shines in through this like giant head building's eyes and down into the room. And somehow the mystery light puts Kai back together. So Kai just stands up.
Deus ex Staria.
I love this so much. So he stands up and it like is knitting him back together, including, and I cannot emphasize this enough, his hair. And then he says, I'm feeling altogether better.
I'm feeling altogether better.
God, he gets the best one-liners. Like the best. And then he comes over and just punches the saw and gets Zev out. He gets her out. He could cause it, I think. And then Zev is like, thank you, Kai, for saving me. Not you, Stanley. Fuck you. You got stuck to a rope. And I want to point out that Kai would not have gotten better if Stan had not opened the hatch so that the blue light could shine down and save him.
So he did help.
So he did help. And this is wait, I want to take a moment before you launch into whatever you just did, which is how annoying would it be to be the prophesied savior of the universe and you literally just can't fucking die?
Yeah.
Because poor Kai is prophesied to end the shadow, which I would like to point out he already did. But that was last episode. That's old news. Who gives a shit? And now he is still the last of the Brunnis, which means he is the one who will end the shadow, which means that every time something terrible happens, he gets brought back. His entire planet burned. He crashed into a ship to try to destroy it. He got stabbed in the chest and made into an immortal assassin. He didn't die.
Deus ex astris.
God from the stars.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Instead
That was your ooh.
instead of Deus ex machina.
Yeah, Deus ex asteri, or whatever he said.
Astris.
So, yeah, I kind of feel like that would make a really good story. Like this guy that's the prophesied savior of the universe, doesn't really want to be, never really wanted to be, is just sort of bumbling through life, assuming that eventually he'll be given the opportunity to save the universe. But in the meantime, he can't die. Like nothing ever works.
Oh, there's a meme lately that I've seen of a group of people playing with a balloon. And they say, oh, if the balloon touches the ground, we all die. And then one of them, something happens to one of them where it should kill them, but they don't die because the balloon has not touched the ground. And then this guy shows up from the military and he's like, he grabs the balloon and he's like, you are now this new elite task force of invincible soldiers and we will protect the balloon and keep it from touching the ground because as long as this balloon does not touch the ground, you cannot die.
I feel like there are several sci-fi movies that I've watched that have that exact plot line. AKA the American attempt at Torchwood.
Oh, yeah.
Which is still my favorite horrific representation of what immortality could be like.
Yeah.
Immortality without invincibility.
Yes.
Yeah. And then...
Absolutely. That actually comes up in the Stormlight Archive.
Oh, I'm looking forward to that then. There's another one where they're immortal. Oh, was that Elantris? He did that there too, where they're immortal, but
Yeah.
they don't heal.
Right. Yeah, when they're talking about the Night Watcher, you can go
Yeah.
find the Night Watcher and ask for a boon, and then the Night Watcher will just throw in a curse at the end.
Yeah. For shits and giggles.
And so they talk about like, oh yeah, somebody wishes for immortality, but
They still grow old.
they still grow old, they still take damage, and they end up just like a disembodied spirit constantly feeling pain. Yeah, as their curse.
Right. It's also that in there's that movie Revenant. Not the one with what's his name?
Leo D.
Yeah, no, it's the vampire one that we watched that has the guy from Heroes, the immortal asshole, the samurai guy.
Oh yeah.
And he's a zombie vampire. He's like a vampire, but he's also kind of a zombie.
Okay.
But he cannot be killed. And so they end up dropping him behind enemy lines in Afghanistan. So he can just kill a bunch of people. No, because he's accidentally
I don't think I've seen that movie.
That's the end. Because he accidentally turns a bunch of maybe Yakuza into vampires because he's really contagious. And so they drop them in oil drums. I don't know. It doesn't matter. Okay, so
back to the topic.
back on the Lexx. The divine predecessors are imitating Stanley Tweedle's voice. They're like, Jiggerata, we got you. And they're like, hey, Lexx, can you go to the next planet? And Lexx is
Because
like,
his hand is there and they can imitate his
Yeah.
voice sufficiently.
I know, it works. Somehow they have now developed the power to imitate Stanley Tweedle. So it's perfectly fine. Don't question it. And they trick the Lexx into
That's
at least
Deus Ex
taking off.
Machina.
That is Deus Ex Machina. You're right. And it's like leaving Brunnis. And then Jiggerata notices that it's taking off and she's like, fucking brains. They deceived me. Lying, thinking meat. And so she screams and turns around to head back to the Lexx, which at some point she stops pursuing the Lexx and just lands on one of the stabilizers. So I'm not sure what's happening there. Nobody cares. It's fine.
Well, I think she gets kicked out of the moth because she takes another bite out of it and it.
Well, it's landed and she gets out. And then it flies off and she's
Okay,
come
yeah.
back. So I don't know. Maybe she just was like, maybe I'll take a breather. I don't know. Meanwhile,
I don't
Kai.
know. It's like Creatures of Light and Darkness.
It's fine. It's fine. We got a comment about that on our YouTube page.
Oh, really?
Yes.
I need to look that up.
Somebody was like, you just don't get it. I'm like, yeah, no, dude, I don't. I do not. And I'm okay with that. So you're not supposed to get it. It's a prose poem. That's what did you hear the part where I was like, sorry, I'm not trashing this guy. I'm not. You can love this book if you want to. It's fine. Just don't listen to my joke about how plot is a primitive vulgarity from Atlas Shrugged and then clap back with, yeah, it is. Although he did mention that Zelazny did not want to publish that book.
Right. I can see that. If
Yeah.
Zelazny had just been like playing with this thing
Yeah.
and then his publishers were like, we need another thing to publish, dude.
I think we need to give
You
Zelazny
need to
another chance.
produce. Yeah, let's add another Zelazny book.
Yeah. Okay, so
Because
this
he
was
definitely has some good like material. I think
Yeah.
he's got something there. And hearing that he did not want to publish this lines up with us not enjoying it.
Yeah. It's fine. Okay, so that was
So we'll add another Zelazny
Thank
book.
you for joining us for this mid-episode break to talk about Strange and Beautiful Book Club, which you can listen to where your podcasts are streamed. So meanwhile, Zev and Kai and Stanley have headed back to the stabilization room because you know what I would do if I saw my giant ship take off? I would go push the big light button again. I feel like we have not pushed the giant light button enough. And we need to go push it right now to turn the stabilizers back on to stop the sun from exploding because now they're trapped on the planet because the Lexx just took off.
Yeah.
And they're going back to the thing and they're like, what is happening? Why is this happening? And Kai reminds them that the brains kind of sort of want him dead because he can't fulfill the prophecy if he doesn't exist. which they knew the brains were there. It's kind of like having a roach living in your kitchen that you're just like, well,
Or I guess more than a roach.
I'm destined to kill this roach, but later.
So I encountered some ants shortly after I moved to North Carolina. And I looked them up because it was so weird.
Are these the sugar ants, the ones that go in light sockets and stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we had this like barn workshop thing, and
Oh yeah, they like electricity.
the light switch stopped working. So I opened up the light switch, and the entire like one gang electrical box was just stuffed full of cooked dead ants. And so I looked, and they're these tiny, tiny black ants, and they're an invasive like species of ant in North America.
Yeah.
But they're drawn, they're compelled to get close to strong electrical fields.
Yeah.
So when they get something like a light switch that they can crawl into because it's not sealed up properly, they make a bridge between the electrical contacts on the
And
outside of the
short
switch,
things out.
and they short things out. And yeah, that was so weird.
Now imagine for a moment that you were a hero of destiny, destined to destroy those ants, and you knew they were in the light switch, and they were right
You
there.
knew they were in the building, but they were not in the light switch yet.
No, you knew right where they were because they're in the brain room.
But you did not seal the light switch electrical box.
Okay.
Now it's your fault.
Well, no, what I'm saying is, let me complete my metaphor.
Okay.
Okay, so these ants exist. You have the power to destroy these ants because they are small and helpless. They are, well, let's say, for the sake of a metaphor within a metaphor, a brain in a brain box sitting on a shelf that does not have any offensive capabilities. And you're like, I'm destined to destroy you, but first, I'm going to go lie in my cryo chamber.
Maybe the metaphor goes deeper. Maybe.
I'm waiting. Oh, it's going to be good.
Maybe it's an invasive parasite in a brain.
Okay.
Like an idea.
Oh.
It latches on.
Okay.
One might call it a meme in the Richard Dawkins or Christopher Hitchens sense.
Okay.
Of a viral idea. And once it gets in, it's there.
Okay.
And you can't get rid of it without like extreme effort.
I'm just saying he could go fucking squish these brains and then go back and then die.
Maybe the writers were just, they were playing 4D chess.
Well, you know, when he went to bed, the shadow was dead. And then when he woke up, they were all back.
But the shadow of the shadow.
Oh, it's fine. Okay, it's fine. You know what? This is one of those things where we just have to table this discussion because here's a no one gives a shit moment and it's fine. So they go back.
Here's another forever night. We're thinking way too hard about this.
Way harder than anybody else did. But you know what? That's what people come to us for. So it's fine. So they push the button.
That's our market.
They push the button. They push the wrong button first. And then they almost get shot by lasers. And then they push the right button. So like, glad he guessed right the second time. Like, how could he not? He pushed it 17 times earlier. Anyway, it's fine. It's fine. And he pushes it in and it's like, okay, stabilization sequence reinitialized. And Stanley goes, Manly Stanley saves the day. He did not, in fact, because the planet is going to blow up in like 8 minutes and it's going to take 10 minutes to turn the lights back on.
Yeah, that's kind of taking credit.
Well, and then Kai goes, I think not, because there's 2 timers and it's pretty clear. The sun is going to destabilize before they can turn the stabilizers back on.
Right.
And Kai's like, well, it's okay because it means the prophecy is false and I'm going to die. Finally, after the last 3 times that I definitely should have died. And those were all coincidences because clearly the prophecy is fine. It's fine. So then the poet man reappears because we haven't seen him in a while. And he gloats a little bit about the fact that they're all going to die. It must be triggered by the stabilization sequence. I don't know. It doesn't matter. And Kai's like, you know what? We're all going to die. Poet Man's right. I think really the thing that we should do our last few minutes on Brunnis is watch the supernova because it is a once in a lifetime experience.
Would you care to join me in watching the supernova? It is a once-in-a-lifetime experience.
Thank you, Kai. I'm telling you, he gets
Yeah,
all the best fucking lines.
he does. He really does.
Yeah. So they go
And
out.
delivered in Canadian deadpan.
Yes. So they go out, and the sun, of course, is starting to swell. And the three of them hold hands, which is really cute.
Mhm.
Like, oh, we're all going to die, so we'll die together. Although Zev and Kai hold a little bit closer than they like arm hug, and then they're like, okay, like arm all the way out. Okay, Stanley, you may touch my fingertips. But wait, did y'all think that's how it was going to end? The star explodes and everybody dies. The end. It's not the end. It's not the end. The blue star starts moving. Remember Blue Star, which was never going to be significant. I mean, come on.
That was definitely not
This
a rifle given to Chekhov.
No. So it starts moving, and don't worry, it will also start talking, so it's fine. And so they watch the Brunnis sun and Blue Star dance around each other for a little bit, and then they're like, "Oh my God, Kai, bro."
I've heard about you.
I totally know him, and I know everything that has happened to you, and I just wanted to inform you that this is not your day of death. But it is kind of the day of death for Brunnis. I'm so sorry.
We're gonna yeet out of here, brah.
Because we're going to finally get to go fucking supernova. I'm so excited. And so they dance a little bit. And he's like, what? I'm sorry, what? And they're like, it's cool. We've already been through this before. And we'll be through it again because we keep going on these cycles together, brah. I think the sun would be a beach boy. They're like, it's okay, man. I'm sorry we didn't see you for much longer, but like, we just want to say hi and we'll see you the next time around. How many times have these suns gone around? There's a possibility they have met Kai hundreds of times. And that could be why they seem so familiar.
Okay, so this reminds me of...
Okay. It's one of those episodes, isn't it?
This reminds me of Star Maker.
Okay.
Where the stars are intelligent.
Yeah.
And they dance their dance without, I guess, breaking the rules of the game.
Yeah.
Except in this case, the blue one is kind of breaking the rules. The rules of Star Maker, but not the rules of Lexx. We already read through the rules of Lexx.
Yes.
So it depends on whether the stars themselves have the same abilities as the Time Prophet, which would make sense for them to be able to see through the previous iterations of the universe.
Yeah.
Because if they have a sense of self-preservation, then they would look back in the past iterations of the entirety of the time of the universe and say, oh, here's this thing that happened that I could have some influence on if I did something a little bit differently. I disagree with the Time Prophet's statement that the flow of time is fixed because it can see back through all the previous iterations.
Yeah.
It's more like a convergent timeline where, okay, I can observe the previous timeline, which is the previous expansion, compression of the universe, Big Bang.
Yeah.
What do they call the opposite of the Big Bang? The Big Crunch? I think it's
something very
the astrophysics
science-dorky
term.
like that. Yes. Yeah.
A very non-original, non-creative name.
No, it's one of those like, I know what we're going to call it, y'all.
We call it the Big Crunch.
And it's fine. It happens.
Anyway.
Yeah.
By having a mind, like a consciousness that can look back at previous
Then
iterations.
You can change them.
And you can say, oh, if I tweak this little thing, I might be able to affect this change.
Maybe she
And
just
if
means
you get that over effectively infinite iterations,
yeah.
you get a timeline that converges on some kind of stable outcome, which is the destruction of
The shadow
the shadow
by Kai
by Kai.
every time.
Hashtag TM.
This is getting a better and better story if you have a character that not only is destined to save the universe, but must do it over and over and over again.
One must imagine Sisyphus as being happy.
I don't think Kai's happy.
He's
It's
happy
fine.
in his own
It's
Canadian
fine. It
way.
doesn't matter. So,
Okay, so what I want to get at is the stars.
okay.
The stars,
Back to my original
like
point.
the Time Prophet,
Yeah.
can see the previous iterations of the universe expansion, contraction, whatever.
Yeah. You can just keep your hands in your lap.
I
This is
can't.
not on video.
This is impossible.
You're going to knock your glass or knock your microphone. I'm just waiting
Or
to
my
see which one
phone.
first.
Or,
No, you already knocked your phone off.
no, it's right here.
Oh.
Sneaky. I'm
Yeah.
sneaky.
You knocked it off earlier and brought it back up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Last night.
It's fine.
Okay, so circling
so-
back
yes.
to what you said, which
Okay.
was the stars already know Kai
Yeah.
because they can see back through all the previous iterations of
Yes.
history. So they have thousands of memories of interacting with Kai.
Mm-hmm.
So they may know things about Kai that even Kai doesn't know about Kai.
That's true. Maybe she meant the flow of time was fixed in as it always flows in a circle,
A spiral.
a spiral. Not that it is always the same events.
From
but
one
the
perspective, a
structure
spiral
of
looks
time.
like a circle.
Thank you.
But from another perspective, it's not a circle.
It looks like a spring. Depending. Does it
looks like a
descend
helix.
or is it all in the
a
same
single
plane?
helix, not a double helix.
It's fine. I don't.
It's not two parallel
We wandered
universes.
far afield, and I would like to meander back to Lexx if that would be possible.
If you're interested in the idea of a double helix of parallel universes interacting with each other, you should read Anathema by Neil Stephenson.
Nobody reads Neil Stephenson.
I
except
read Neil Stephenson.
You and like 4 other people.
There
everyone-
are dozens of us.
Everyone
Rachel.
else buys them and puts them on their shelf so they look smart. That's it.
There are dozens of us.
Okay. Okay, so like 5 other people.
Yeah, well, yeah, half a dozen is still a
It's not
a multiple of dozen.
It's fine. It's fine. I'm sorry, Neil. I didn't mean it. So anyway, the combined
big
power
fan.
of the Brunnis sun and the star are capable of actually grabbing Lexx and putting it back down on the planet. Why? Don't fucking question it. Why are you questioning it? Go somewhere else if you want logic. Get the fuck out of here. What?
Deus ex astris.
What is the blue star? Its name is Blue Star. That's all we know. Why does it have these powers? Why did it show up? Why has it been waiting for this planet, this other star to go supernova so they can go supernova together? Who knows? Who cares? It doesn't matter. It brought Kai back to life. It landed the Lexx. It solved every story problem that this entire story had. And all it had to do was just be there. So it's fine. It's
Hashtag closure.
Hashtag closure. But Kai does not immediately accept that this is how this is going to go down. He's like, I kind of only have a little bit of artificial life left, and I would kind of like to die on Brunnis because it's my planet.
I wanted it to be a big significant moment.
It's the
I wanted
planet
to go
of my
out with a-
ancestors.
Bang.
Too soon. And I
Wink, wink,
I-
Zev.
he's like, I kind of just want to die. And I could die here, and I could die, surrounded by Poet Man, I guess.
Who would not want to be surrounded by Tim Curry?
And Zev goes, no, you were brought back for a reason. And he's like, yeah, no, I know the reason. Thank you. I am supposed to destroy the shadow. It's not like this is some nebulous, I have a purpose.
The reason was a kind of prideful rebellion against prophecy.
Right. No, but she's talking universal reason. Like,
Okay.
you were brought back for a purpose. You were brought back to have a have an influence on the world. He's like, yeah, no, I know all that already. Thanks. Like, I've known that for 2,000 years. It's fine. But the real crux here is Zev goes, come with us. Come with me. And they had a musical number. They had a musical number.
In Zev's head.
Was it?
Actually, that's a good point.
Because we didn't see Kai's
because
memories.
they went in together.
Yeah.
We did not see the intro to the burst of life from Kai's perspective. Maybe it was both of them together.
Yeah. Maybe that was also his dream.
Kai's burst of life best timeline is being alive again with Zev.
Musical number
I
was
mean,
Zev. Yeah.
Not so bad.
I mean, that's what I'm going with, because that means Kai got one tiny little moment where he got to make a choice about his own life. Got agency, y'all, for like 2 seconds.
That's important.
Poor Kai.
For personal development.
Yeah. So they end up getting on the moth, I think, that they took there. And then they fly back to the Lexx. And they're like, okay, Flex.
Which has once again pierced.
We don't need to say penetrated again. There's like
penetrated.
No.
That's the word I was looking for.
And I gave it to you.
Inserted.
I gave it Anyway, Stanley orders
I know
Lexx
Rachel's trigger words
to take them away, and it does. It's like, peace out, just as everything goes supernova, as Blue Star and Brunnis, the star,
the planetary system.
It's fine. It doesn't matter. But however, Jiggerata is still on the planet because the moth like flies off and leaves her, and she's on the stabilizer as it starts to go up. Yeah. And so she's like, dance for me to the suns. She's like, put on a show.
She's in the moment.
It's fine. She knows she's going to die. So she's going to die Jiggerata, and I respect that. So it goes supernova, and she gets evaporated, which I'm not sure how they're going to bring her back from that, but I'm sure they will.
In IMDb, she's in 6 episodes.
Look, we brought the shadow back. We're going to bring Jiggerata back. It's just a matter of when.
Right.
Yeah. It's fine. So, in fact, they may not even reference the fact that she was completely incorporeal. It's fine. It's fine. And then on the Lexx, they watch.
I look forward to it because I've never watched these in order.
On the Lexx, they watch Brunnis burn, and Kai thanks the dying stars. He's like, "Thank you for all you did, but not you, Stanley. Fuck you, Stanley." And 790. Did y'all forget about him? The show kind of did for a bit, but it's okay. Jiggerata kicked him off the platform, and he ended up in the
juice,
the bile duct, the pancreas of the Lexx. I don't know. It's like a swampy for some reason, and it's fine. It's like Dagobah down in the valley.
The depths of Dagobah.
I know. So he's down there reciting his poetry, and Kai saves him with his caw, which is just of infinite length. Okay. How long is it? Yes. Can it reach from the cockpit all the way to the bottom of the Lexx? Sure. Where is all of that cord stored?
How long is it? As long as it needs to be.
Where is all that cord stored? It's fine. It's a grower. It doesn't matter. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. Okay, it's fine.
It's a grower, not a shower.
So then actually 790 helps Stanley Tweedle reattach his hand. He sticks it in this jar and it ends up reattaching. And then when he pulls it out, he has 2 left hands. He's like, oh, I have 2 left hands.
And I love that 790 has some kind of influence over the healing technology.
Everything. If anything that 790 has done is actually under the purview of his programming, it would be the healing. Because he's the one who was working at the biosculptor. His only job is to pull the handles.
Yeah, good point.
The space thing totally should be outside of his wheelhouse. But this should be like, okay, I think I have a module on this. I could probably pull it up.
Yeah, on body manipulation. Absolutely. That is totally justifiable.
Yeah. And then Zev tells Kai that they will find a way to revive him. And he's like, cool. But if we don't find a way to revive me, and I only have a little bit of life left, then I want to spend the rest of my life with you.
So she had an impact.
Huh?
She had an impact.
She did. She had a what?
Sorry.
Sips whiskey. She had an impact. I'm telling you, this woman. Listen. Sometimes you meet a woman and you were someone before you met him,
Big hugs.
and then you're different after you meet him. And sometimes it's a good thing, and sometimes it's a bad thing. But I think this one was a good thing. It was a good thing. But he tells her, it is what I want, which if you will recall earlier, he goes, I am dead. I do not want.
Ooh.
Yeah, so
she made him eat his words.
she's kind of bringing him back to life. Because if he's dead and he cannot want.
Is getting him to want to be alive again.
Is this where the storyline for Warm Bodies came from?
Warm Bodies is not an adaptation of Romeo and Juliet. Warm Bodies is a fan rewrite of Lexx.
Yes, of the Zev Kai love story.
From the perspective of Lexx as an adaptation of Romeo and Juliet.
It's a bit Romeo and Juliet. Okay, it's fine. It's fine. So, as in the first episode, this one ends with Stanley telling the Lexx to find them a new home. And he says, as you wish, Stan. And they fly off into the horizon to look for a new home, as if there is not an entire room full of traitorous brains.
With huge amounts of information.
Easily accessible because they appear to just walk over there at any given moment. It's like in the adjoining room. There's like a curtain, and behind it, there's a bunch of brains that are like, we fucking hate you.
Okay, in my head,
okay,
the cockpit where they spend most of their time is in one of the eyeballs of Lexx, and then the predecessors are in another eyeball of the Lexx.
Okay. The whole eyeball?
Well, I mean, one room of the complex of rooms in each eyeball.
Or is it like the bridge on the Enterprise where it's actually on the bottom? Like the little dragonfly mouth. I don't know why I made that.
Okay, hold on. Which Enterprise?
Which? They all have it on the bottom.
No, it's on the top.
What's on the bottom?
It's on the top where there's wind, depending on which Enterprise it is.
Okay.
On some of them, it's on the top of the disc section.
Yeah, the saucer section.
The saucer section, on the very tippy top of it, there's a little bump with some windows. Again. Say it again, Rachel.
No, I paused it before I said it. It'll never be captured on recording.
Damn! She said I was right, and I almost got it on recording. I would sample that forever. Not really.
No, you wouldn't. I say you're right lots of times.
I know. About 1/10 of the time.
This is the whiskey talking. Some of them are on the bottom.
Right. You cut me off before I could finish explaining that some of them are in a bump of the saucer section on the top. Some of them are in the bump on the saucer section on the bottom. Some of them are actually in the center, and the front view screen of the bridge is actually just a screen. It's not actually a window.
Yeah.
That's what I was trying to explain.
Okay.
It depends which Enterprise.
All right, so we proved nothing here, except that we don't know what the geography inside the Lexx is. Maybe I'll look it up. Like somebody did a outline, like a map of,
one of those,
Nick's loft.
Those like...
Surely there's a fan who put together where everything is in the Lexx. There's only 3 locations. Lexx has one eyeball, one other eyeball, and a tail. It's somewhere in there.
I was thinking of those like Star Wars, like cross-section books.
Yeah. The exploded diagrams of all the ships.
Exploded. That's the word I was looking for. The only word that was popping into my head was
the
blowout.
ejaculated diagrams. That's all.
Blowout and variations of blow something.
Yes. Yeah. We'll just leave it at that. We'll let people fill in how they want to go. So that's the end of the episode. They fly off. So I would like to point out that they accomplished fuck and all, but they had a great time doing it.
They established some closure for Kai.
No, I mean, the story gave the viewer something, but the actual participants of the episode accomplished nothing.
No, Kai got some closure.
Oh, okay. Of Brunnis?
On Brunnis, yeah.
He also got a little closer to Zev. He got to have a musical number, which I fully believe
That's a big fucking deal.
he participated in.
Okay, that's going to be our perspective on this. Our fan canon on this is that the joint musical number was shared between Zev and Kai.
Yes. Agreed.
As part of the process into the burst of life.
Yes. Agreed. And I guess we'll just leave it there because pretty soon we have to move on to our next movie-long episode. I wonder who will they bring back this time? The Mega Shadow? Oh no, it's the Mega Shadow.
Ooh,
didn't we just do
let's
that?
pull a very 90s move. Next week on Lexx. Lexx and the crew are running out of food resources. Desperate, they visit what appears to be a garbage planet, but quickly become separated and undergo a series of individual adventures in a culture that's basically cannibalistic.
So join us next week for an exciting all-new episode of The Dead Do Not Podcast.
A Lexx rewatch.
I worship his shadow.
May his shadow fall upon you.
Until next time, friends.
Bye.